Hello everyone, welcome back to another Top 10 Commander video. We are continuing the Top 10 by Color series. Kind of a redux series since I've already done pretty much all of these before. But the years go by, we get more sets, we get even more powerful cards, and the list has changed. There are at least 3 cards that are on this list that I know for a fact were not on my previous Top 10s for Black. So let's start it off here with the first card, number 10, Deadly Rollick. A lot of these cast for free if you have your commander cards are just perfect because, well, the Pact cards are already pretty awesome, but they do have a downside where you have to pay mana your next turn, or else you lose the game. With these, there's no drawback whatsoever, you just need to meet that condition of having your commander. So Deadly Rollick, even for 4 mana, I think is still a good card if you're exiling a creature. But exiling a creature for free is still pretty darn good, considering that most targeted removal in Black is not going to exile, it's just going to destroy. So for free, you get to do that. Normally, you'd have to pay 4 mana outright. There would be no way to reduce that cost. So this is already one of the better removal spells in Black for that reason. When you consider that one of the best cards in White is Swords to Plowshares, when you can pretty much do that without your opponent gaining life and not paying any mana, you tend to have a pretty good card. Even if Black already has sacrifice removal, having this kind of removal is still going to be pretty good. And then we have number 9, which is Yawgmoth Thran Physician. This was very difficult. I wanted to put either Yawgmoth or Keurig on here. Yawgmoth, I think, is just a better card all around. It does more. And Keurig is more beneficial if you're going for mono black. So Yawgmoth is more versatile, and you have just a way to synergize with so much in Black. You can proliferate planeswalkers, you can proliferate poison counters, you can of course proliferate +1/+1 counters, -1/-1 counters. You have a sack outlet where you can just go off and combo. If you have anything else like a Blood Artist, that's usually going to win you the game. Oh, and by the way, he's a commander option. So if there's a legendary creature that's perfect no matter where you put it, it's Yawgmoth. And then number 8, we have Opposition Agent. If you're a fan of Gonti, if you're a fan of a lot of those Black cards where you're essentially just playing your opponent's deck and just having a ton of fun doing it, I think Opposition Agent is quite possibly the best card that will allow us to do this. You can take advantage of all of their searches, their land searches, anything like that, which is very common in the game. So taking control of that, searching for whatever you want, it could be something that helps your deck win, or it could just be something that helps their deck win and you don't want them to have it. Black is usually the color that torments people the best, finding cruel and unusual ways of ruining their game. Stealing their cards is probably the most brutal way that you can punish an opponent. So yeah, she's the newest card on this list, and it's well deserved. Number 7 is Toxic Deluge, probably the best removal spell, one-time removal spell in Commander, because 3 mana is pretty cheap for a board wipe that you can get rid of indestructible creatures, creatures with protection. Toxic Deluge gets around just about everything without being sacrifice removal, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. If it's late game, the card is next to useless, which is the only bad thing about it. You're going to have to gain some life before you can use it to full effectiveness. But yeah, -X for paying life in 3 mana. Very efficient. Number 6 is Grave Pact. So -X, that makes Toxic Deluge one of the best removal spells in the Commander format. But if you ask me, Grave Pact is unmatched. Putting it out there whenever you have some kind of sacrifice strategy or some kind of token strategy makes Grave Pact the best card on the field more often than not. The entire game becomes, how can we get around Grave Pact? How can we deal with this? Some decks don't care about it, some decks really care about it. If you're playing Voltron, Grave Pact is a nightmare to deal with. And not only that, but we of course have Dictate of Erebos, Butcher of Malakir. We have the same ability on other cards, so where you see Grave Pact, you're likely to see some other stuff like that too. Just one of the most difficult things to have to deal with in Commander period is Grave Pact abilities. And then number 5, we have Necropotence. One of the most powerful cards ever printed. And the only reason why it's not higher is because I don't see it played consistently in Commander. You'll see it in the most competitive decks, because that's just how good it is. However, casual Commander is more about playing a lengthy game, and this is the kind of card that either dominates in the right deck, or just flat out holds you back if you don't know how to play with it. And I find it's often the case that people will play Necropotence, but they don't really have any kind of instant win combo to really justify having a Necropotence. I mean, it's still a good card, But yeah, when your deck is built, when it's optimized, that's when Necropotence is at its best. And if you do have those win cons, if you know exactly what you're doing, this could be one of the most dangerous cards in your whole deck. Number 4 is Yawgmoth's Will. Another card I don't see it played consistently, and it's not really for the same reason as Necropotence. I think it could be played in just about every black deck, but it is reserve list and it's over $100, so most people just don't bother. However, the ability is insane, and it's really the only card that does this well. For just 3 mana, you get to play pretty much everything from your graveyard again, which for more competitive decks is fantastic. A lot of rituals, a lot of things that can help keep your turn going. It's just a brilliant card. There are just so many ways that you can win with something like this, whether it's some kind of storm strategy, or if you're just playing good stuff black. Even if you're not getting the craziest turn possible, replaying stuff from your graveyard is never a bad thing. And then number 3, we have Torment of Hailfire. This is pretty much the best knockout punch. If you're looking at the majority of decks that play black, Torment of Hailfire is just the easiest card that you can throw in there, and it's kind of like blue Cyclonic Rift, it's kind of like white's Teferi's Protection. It doesn't have to actually serve a purpose with the rest of your strategy. It is just so darn good on its own. You just have to wait to get enough mana, and that's about it. It's so good compared to something like Exsanguinate, where if you don't finish off the job with a card like that, your opponents still have their permanents, they still have their resources. If you do this and you dump a bunch of mana into X, they likely discarded a bunch and they had to sacrifice a bunch of their non-land permanents. So even if they did survive, they're still probably screwed. So number 2, we have Vampiric Tudor, the best thing that black does in the Commander format. It's unmatched. No color even comes close. Tutors. If you have some kind of tutor for enchantments in white, if you have some kind of tutor for artifacts in blue, creatures in green, and in red, I guess you have tutors, but they're more unpredictable. The point is, every other color, when they tutor, when they search for something, they tend to have to reveal what they searched because they're searching for a specific card type. If you're in blue and you search up an instant and sorcery, you need to prove to the table that you searched up an instant or sorcery. With black and cards like Vampiric Tudor, you just search for any card, you don't have to reveal it, and you put it on top of your deck. It could be the best card in the game, it could be a Yawgmoth's Will, and they have no way of knowing. It could just be a basic land. The card is just so good, so ridiculous, and it just keeps getting reprinted. It's still going to hold its value. Sees play in all kinds of EDH, competitive, casual. I don't think it's ever going to be surpassed. Tutoring for whatever you want is never going to be outdated. So before we go on to number 1, we have some honorable mentions here. We have some cards that I think are better in competitive play, like Dark Ritual. We have Doomsday and Ad Nauseam. These are all fantastic cards, but I just kind of have to weigh how often I see these in casual play. And even more so for Doomsday and Ad Nauseam, you kind of have to build a deck around Doomsday and Ad Nauseam, which makes it a lot harder for those cards to see play in other decks, or just casual decks in general. And then we have Damnation, another good removal spell, but it's just Black Wrath of God, it's not a big deal. We have Kyrix, Son of Yawgmoth, as I mentioned before. Fantastic creature, fantastic commander option. Definitely one that you want to go for if you're planning on playing a mono black deck. So number 1 is, without a doubt, Demonic Tutor. I just said it was unmatched. So it really comes down to how you view 1 mana versus 2 mana. If the 2 mana can get it to you immediately, whereas the 1 mana Vampiric Tudor just puts it on top of your deck and you lose 2 life. When I first started playing Commander, this was like the one card that I had to get. And I never played Eternal formats before, I never played Legacy, so I had to get some of these older cards, and Demonic Tutor was the first one. It was the only white bordered card in my deck, but it was the best one. I still have it in all of my decks. It's never going to be outdated, like I just said. This is one of the best things that you can do in the Commander format, period, not just in black. If I do a top 10 of all cards in Commander, better believe this is close to the top of that list. So anyway, that's going to do it for the top 10 best mono black cards in the Commander format. Black is probably my favorite mono color. I do like playing mono white because it's kind of a challenge, and I enjoy tokens and good keywords. But as far as just power and having just the craziest cards that you can dominate a game with, black is just so much fun. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. You all have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next time.